Welcome to the podcast. I'm actually having a little bit of rebranding this coming Thursday. So it's like that pause to like introduce the way that I used to, but welcome to the podcast. Today I have Hana O'Neill, who is the Suburban Witch and a psychic divination expert, tarot and astrology reader. And we'll get into all of it. I'm really fascinated, especially when it comes to like our psychic gifts. Like it's something I've been diving into for the last like few years, but it's still like I'm still a novice with it. But I will hand you the floor for you to introduce yourself, your story, anything pivotal along the way that sort of got you to where you're at today, and we'll take it from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Rochelle. So, one thing, as well as the amazing witchy stuff that I do, one thing I also focus on is a lot of deconstruction content around the Christian faith, because that's my baseline. That's where this all started. I began in the Pentecostal church. It's very different, but the Christian to witch pipeline is still very strong. So it is there. There are people traversing it, and it's a little bit bumpier than people who maybe don't have religious trauma and things like that. Because that fear that comes with religious trauma, the fear, the thinking that every intuitive thought must be a demon is really hard to overcome. So that's one of my, I guess, special interests, is helping people traverse that tricky path, as well as people who don't have that. And you don't need to have that to work with me or understand any of the stuff that I'm talking about. But it is an interesting aspect to have both of those there. And the normal pop culture generation out there also comes with some of this religious trauma, even if they didn't grow up in the church, purely because it is in things like The Exorcist. We have that like religious branding of, if you use a Ouija board, this is going to happen to you. And people come to psychic gifts, magic, all of these things with those almost like built-in beliefs that you then have to deconstruct and pull apart. So that's one of the things I love helping people do. I love helping people, I guess, take their blinders off and see what amazingness we have in this world, magically, spiritually, psychically, because it's really amazing, and it can really truly help us in a really practical way in our everyday life to have all those skills, talents, techniques, gifts, all of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think unless you were raised from like that small pocket of people that are more spiritually inclined, maybe, and even that, I still think there are always like remnants of some sort of religious teaching or I don't know. My dad was Roman Catholic, and so I went to the church every single Sunday. But for me, once I did all the things that I was supposed to do, and then I turned 16, and he was like, "Okay, now you can continue going or not." And I never went back because I was like sitting in a church and having to say like 25 Hail Marys because I hit my brother. Just felt to me like, But I would love to know if you're open to talking about it. I guess more about like your what that looked like for you and what it looked like for you separating from that and then coming more into this intuitive witchy kind of practice.
Yeah. So I've always been a very spiritual person. So even as a kid growing up, I spent my first 16 years of life in the Pentecostal church, which they're not gonna ever admit this, but in my opinion, having seen both sides of the coin, the Pentecostal branch of Christianity is the most psychically active church, in my opinion. They have, gifts of the spirit. Like there are literal gifts from the Holy Spirit of essentially channeling, basically, and dream divination and prophecy. Like this is psychic stuff. But it's okay when it's from the Holy Spirit. Anything outside of that is where they draw the line. So I was already very familiar with a lot of this magical thinking in a way. And it's funny, my brother and I had almost the exact same upbringing, but he just never really clicked. He liked going to church because he could play in the youth group band and play drums and guitar and get some live music experience. But he wasn't like myself, who was, desperate for that spiritual connection. So I think that almost desperate spiritual seeking remained a part of me. That's just a part of who I am. I have a lot of 12th house placements. It makes sense now. At the time, I didn't know that. I was just like, I thought I was going to be a pastor. I thought I was going to be
Wow.
preaching and a missionary and all of these things. And I had these psychic visions when in the depths of prayer, like absolute surrender at the altar of the church on the floor, praying my heart out, trying to get something. And I would have these visions, right? Which have been confirmed to have been a part of my future. It was a
Mm.
precognitive vision I thought it came from God. The very first one that I had was so clear. It was me, there were these children in front of me and they were standing on dirt floor. I could tell they were from another country. They had brown skin, these little children looking up at me. I must have been an adult in this vision, even though I was like 5 when I had it. And these kids had their sort of hands up to me. And I came out of this prayer meditation, which now I see I'd put myself into a trance receptive state. And I came out, I turned to my mum and I said, I'm going to be a missionary, because the only possible context I had as a 5-year-old in the church was the missions that we saw every week that we were donating for and people were going to. So that was the only concept I had. When we got kicked out of the church at 16 because my parents divorced, a huge worldview shift. Like, what do you mean you can be kicked out of the church? We didn't do anything wrong. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. What are you doing? So that forced me to confront a lot of things, but I was still spiritual. I still believed everything. So that letting go of that comes, takes time. Similar to when someone's in a relationship and you're fully in love and then they cheat on you and you leave because you're supposed to, or they break up with you because you're supposed to, but like you still love them. That's what it felt like. I was still in love with the church. I was still in love with God. I'd had visions, right? I'd had proof. I was certain. I'd felt it. I'd felt the tingles and all of that. But in hindsight, a lot of that was just live music played at the right chord at the right time with the air conditioning on and lots of people in a room, because it was a mega church. It was huge. So at the time, I was still seeking and I still had that vision. So I'm like, what on earth does this mean for me? I'm supposed to be a missionary. So I tried other churches. They didn't quite fit right. I didn't have that base of knowing everyone from birth and knowing what was expected, right? So it was a bit harder to sort of integrate in. And so I tried, I explored, I experimented. It was hard because I was working. Parents had moved to opposite, like literally they were about 5 hours apart from each other, and I was trying to see everyone. So church fell off the wayside for a little bit in favor of school, social, and work. That vision went to the back of my mind, and I thought, you know what? I must have made it up. I was a kid. Maybe I literally fell asleep and had a dream. Like, that's probably what happened, right? I started explaining it away. And later on, forgotten all about it, I, in true me fashion, was escaping from stuff that had happened in my social life, a breakup and all of that. And I said, you know what? I'm going overseas. I'm moving overseas. I'm leaving. See you later. Mic drop. Quite literally at my 21st speeches. Mic drop. I'm moving to Canada. See you guys. And on the way, I was like, I'm going to go to Cambodia. I'm going to volunteer there and teach English for a bit. And then I'll travel Southeast Asia and go to Canada. This is just this. I need to get out and explore. Get to Canada. I start volunteering, teaching English. And these beautiful little children, at one point, standing on the dirt floor that was in the school room, the classroom, looking up at me. And I just had this full body chills moment of, oh my goodness, this is that vision. This is that vision. Oh my gosh. And I'm standing there trying to like teach a class and also internally freaking out, thinking, what do you mean? What do you mean this is true? What does that mean? Does that mean God's real? Like, what is happening to me? And I was traveling by myself, right? So I had to go home to my hostel room by myself and sit there and think about the day, like, what just happened? I had the vision. That was real. That was almost like a play-by-play, exactly as I remember it. But I'm not a missionary. That's not what I'm doing here. Maybe I just had a vision of the future and there was no God-given purpose behind it. So why did I get this vision? And so that plagued me for a little bit, this like wondering. And I never really toyed with the atheist sort of thinking. I was always like agnostic. There's something, I don't know what it is. I don't know if that church was right for me anymore, but there's something, right? So experiences, all of that started to pull apart some of the indoctrination that I'd had, some of the beliefs. When I finally met my husband, so at the time he was my boyfriend, he was raised Catholic. And so I was like, sweet, you're a Christian as well. This is great. And I would say stuff like, oh, when we're in church, we did this, this, and this. And he'd sort of turn around and go, you did what? What? Say that again. What do you mean? What are you talking about? People fell on the floor. Why are they falling on the floor? And it's that shock that he had when I'm like, we believe in the same thing, right? That shock that he had shocked me out of it a little bit and opened my eyes to, oh, was was it weird? Was I in a weird church? Was I in one of those strange ones? Yes, dear listener, I was. Uh, and so that sort of started to help, and he would question a lot, and that would force me to come up with some sort of answer. And it wasn't until we returned home after a few years in Canada, that's where I met him, returned home to Australia and went on a ghost tour, because at this point, like, I'd always been a bit intrigued by ghosts. Weren't allowed to be in the church, but I'm out now, I can do that. So I went on a ghost tour of an asylum in Victoria. It's called Arrowdale Asylum in Southeast Australia. And it was like, this is an intense tour. This is like 4 hours from like 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. walking tour around like acres and acres of property. And I loved spooky stuff. I thought it was really cool and really fun. I wasn't really scared of it, but I liked the excitement. And we walked into, I believed in it. I walked into this, it looked like a house. It looked like an old house. This is like super old place. Walk in, and as soon as we go in, I get hit with this wave of like the smell of, like, I was walking into a barn, like it was hay and straw. And I was like, oh my gosh, do they have like farm animals in here or something? And everyone in the group I was with sort of looked over at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm going, can't you, come on, like, it smells like a barn. Like, that is the strongest smell of hay I've ever had in my life. Almost bowled me over type of smell.
Mm.
And the guide we were with sort of pushes us all into this room. And he said, can you say that again? And I'm like, oh, the smell, how can no one else smell it? My husband's like, dude, are you having a stroke? What is wrong with you? No one could smell it. And at that point, I'm thinking, am I? Like, what do you mean? This is really intense for me. And it's so physical. Our sense of smell is so physical. Anyway, the guide said, it's really interesting you say that. This is the room where they used to perform lobotomies. And back then, they didn't have running water. So they would cover the floor with hay, and that would soak up the blood so they could sweep it. And everyone's then like pivots, turns around and goes, oh my God. And I was like, what just happened? Oh my goodness. Now from, this is like, God, 15 years ago, maybe 13 years, something like that. I can't do maths. It was a while ago. At the time, that was like very weird, very strange. Lots of thoughts came after that, right? It was pivotal. But looking back, I'm like, that's so clever of my spirit team, my spirit guides, to do it that way, because I had witnesses. So I couldn't explain it away. It wasn't also like me trying to convince other people that it happened, because there was like a group of 30 people that watched it happen. It was so visceral, so physical, I couldn't ignore it. And that's what made me speak it out loud. If it had been like a flash of seeing something, I probably would have thought, I don't know, pushed it away, or thought I was imagining, or, did my medication have some weird strain on it that's causing me to hallucinate? Like, I would have kind of questioned it around that. If I'd heard something, I would have just thought I'd heard some like workers in another room or something. Like, I wouldn't have really put two and two together. But the sense of smell was such a clever one. Also, being in the room that we were in, I got immediate validation with what the guide backed up in the story. And if they'd shown me blood, if I'd heard the lobotomies, that would have freaked me out. And I would have closed off completely. By having my clairalience, is what that's called, this sense of psychic smell, or a mediumshipistic in this case, because of the area we were in, this sense of smell get activated like that. It made me curious and intrigued, and like, that was something special, and I can't hide from that. So I think that was a really pivotal moment in retrospect that really pushed me closer to where I was supposed to be, which is what I'm doing now. And working with psychic gifts, and what was that called? Why did that happen? Does that happen to other people? All of these things prompted very, very deep research, and it just got bigger and better after that, right? So that's my can't even remember what your original question was, but I hope that answered it.
No, that was so good. I was like, that's so fascinating. And I was like getting chills as you were talking about it. I've always been so fascinated with people who have had such like visceral experiences early on, and like how that translates, or like how they continue to practice it like into adulthood. And some people have really supportive parents, some people like forget about it and then come back to it later. So like the fact that you saw that vision, like, it came true, but like in a different
Mm,
context than your 5-year-old mind could like wrap itself around is just so
yes.
fascinating.
A woman
My
traveling on her own was not
Yeah.
in my repertoire at
Yeah.
5.
I can't imagine. I mean, you never know. Yeah, no, my daughter, she's seen things since she was a baby. And I always like I so my like one little story for myself is like I was always so I grew up in the Middle East. So I grew up around a lot of different religions, a lot of different cultures.
Cool.
And so I kind of got to experience it. I went to India and Thailand and I've been to Australia and like just like all different places. So I've kind of like had this curiosity towards just like people and cultures anyway. And um so I was, I think, more spiritually inclined anyway, just because I would see the similarities between everything, right, as opposed to like seeing the differences, I guess. But
Yes.
when my daughter first started seeing things, I just never really shut it down. I just kind of would be like, oh, okay, whatever, or I just wouldn't say anything, or like little things would freak me out when she was little, and I would see like all these orbs like on the baby monitor, or like she would open closets and talk to people, and I'm like, oh my God, is my house haunted? Which it was, because when I was 25, it was the morning of my 25th birthday was the first time I ever saw a ghost in my entire life. And I knew it. Like it stood there. I could kind of see through it. It was a military uniform. And I pulled the covers over my head and I was like, this is not happening. This is not happening. I was so like, I was sweating so bad. I couldn't even check my phone to see the time because it was just soaking wet. And then I pulled it back. It was still there. And it just started like slowly lifting its arms and it was looking at me. It was on my ex-husband's side of the bed. So I don't know if it was trying to communicate with him, or I don't know. But anyway, long story short, after that, I was equally amazed and terrified. And I remember like sitting on my bed and I just sat there and I spoke out loud and I was like, listen, because I didn't feel like it was malicious. So I was like, I can't help you. Like, I don't want to see you anymore. Like, I can't. And kind of, I never saw anything after that. Here and there, things have happened. Like, toys would make noise. My daughter still sees shapes and things like that. But it's fascinating to me when we're able to really, or I guess like maybe just not having the fear towards it. Like, what was it for
Mm.
you that you walked into that situation, like not having that fear?
I think one thing that was a few years prior to that. So when I was still traveling, so I did 2 years in Canada, and then my husband and I, we were still dating, but we had plans. I was like, no, dude, I have this whole thing planned out. You're not coming with me. So we just split off for a bit. He camped around the States, and I was like, no, I'm a slow traveler. So I went to Louisiana and Texas, and I worked on farms in those areas,
Mm.
volunteered on farms. So I could get my, that paid for my room and board, so I could stay a little bit longer and really explore the area. And when I was in Louisiana working on a goat dairy farm, I was staying in a trailer, what Australians would call a caravan, in the back, surrounded by cornfields, which, look, if you've ever grown up watching Signs, that was
Yeah.
scary enough, just
Yeah.
being surrounded by cornfields. I was kind of like, all right, I'll deal with it. I'm a big girl. So every night I'd, walk from the house in the dark. It's so dark out in rural Louisiana, walk out and get into my trailer and go to sleep. And within the very first couple nights of being there, and I had flown in, gone in through New Orleans, explored New Orleans, done all the usual touristy stuff, and then gone here. Within the first couple nights, I woke up with sleep paralysis. And I had never had that before, but I was aware of it because in that exploration outside of the church, I went and watched all the things I wanted to watch, but hadn't been allowed to. Things like True Blood and Vampire Diaries and all of those sorts of fun, sort of not quite spooky, but a little bit camp sort of shows that explored those elements that I was never allowed to explore. I read all of the NRI stuff. So I sort of had gone into this fantasy realm of the paranormal. And what it had done is given me a lot of the vocab and the words around it, but it also sort of placed it into could be real. Some things definitely not, like, that kind of area. It's a bit of exposure therapy, I guess. So when this happened, I knew that usually when people have sleep paralysis, they feel a weight on their chest. I know that now is called hag riding. I didn't have that. It was my arms, my hands. It felt like someone had their hands around my wrists, holding me down to the bed. And I was on my back and I was trying to lift. I could lift up my head. I could lift up my chest. So this didn't fit with the psychology point of view that it's just your mind dreaming and your body can't move. And so you kind of freak out a little bit. Didn't fit with that because I could move my body. My eyes were open and I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it holding me down. And I was petrified. Like, I don't think I'd ever really been that scared. When I was growing up, my parents would tell me there were demons waiting to get me. They're whispering in my ears. They're under my bed. Like, I had horrible, horrible trauma around hell and demons that was unfortunately reinvigorated every Sunday service. But even though those were terrifying, I'd never felt like something was touching me before, right? This was that first time. So my brain goes, demon, immediately. Like, oh my goodness, I've obviously opened something. I've opened a portal. There's a demon. And it's holding me down. So I slip straight back into the church and I start praying. So every prayer I could think of, just consistently on repeat, and it didn't work. And this is what really scared me, is that didn't work. I was always told, you know, the power of the name of Jesus would frighten any demon, but this thing wasn't going anywhere. Eventually, I don't know if it got bored or whatever happened. I fell back. Well, no, I didn't fall back to sleep. It left. I got up. I put on my Hillsong music, which is an Australian Christian church, put on that music, turned on all the lights in the trailer, and then I don't think I slept the rest of the night. The next day, I spoke to one of the girls who lived there, the granddaughter of the people who own the farm. She was roughly my age, and I just sort of very hesitantly, thinking she was going to laugh at me and call me like all sorts of things. But I just kind of brought it in like, hey, with the trailer, has anyone ever had anything happen in there? And she just sort of looks at me and goes, what did you bring back with you from New Orleans? And I was like, oh, you believe me? Like, no questions, just straight up, like, obviously you brought something back. And I'd never sort of experienced, I guess, that acceptance of the supernatural in that way. And she goes, babe, we're in New Orleans, we're in Louisiana. Like, my best friend has her house haunted by a Civil War ghost. Like, we're surrounded by some of the most haunted places in the world. Horrible shit has happened here. This is a natural part of living in this state. I was like, okay, so what do I do? And she's like, well, I got a friend. He's a witch. I'll get him to come over. And firstly, my brain's like, he's a witch? What do you mean he's a witch? Fun fact, witch is a gender neutral term. I just had no concept of that at the time. So he's a witch and he was going to come over and help. And I was like, okay, well, my prayers didn't work, so let's try it. He comes in. At the time, I didn't have the vocab for this. So I was just in there like, what the hell does he think he's doing? Watching it all in kind of a bit of awe, intrigue, but also a little bit of judgment in retrospect, I notice. So what he did have was a pendulum, and he was basically checking the area, asking questions. And he said, yes, there is an entity here. I actually can't get rid of it completely, but I can ward the trailer so you will be safe. And I was like, I don't know what any of that means, but just do what you got to do. So he cleansed the space. He put up some wards. I didn't see his actual process on that. But then I went to bed that night and I was like, all right, lights on, Christian music on, and I'll just sleep like that. So I'm lying in bed and I heard like scraping on the roof of this trailer. And my brain is trying desperately to be like, it's windy. There is a tree that is branches on top of the trailer. That's what it is. I'm not going out to check. Absolutely not. That's what it is. And so I convinced myself of that, fell asleep. Next morning, I get up. And of course, it's like walk out, shut the door, walking away. I was like, do I turn around? Do I check? I can't remember if there's a tree close enough. Do I check? Because I knew if I checked and there was a tree there, all fine. If there wasn't, though. Anyway, I turned around, had a look. No tree within distance of scraping on the top, no matter how much wind there was. So I was like, oh my goodness, all right. But at least in one aspect, it worked, right? Whatever he did actually did something. The thing stayed outside. It couldn't get in. And so it stayed like that for the rest of the time I was there. At the end of my trip, I went back to New Orleans. There was a shop called Voodoo Authentica, and I got to chat with one of the voodoo practitioners there about it and was like, dude, what can you help me? I don't know what it is, don't know why it's here. And basically I'd done this graveyard tour when I was first in New Orleans. And I went through, all the Garden District, all these beautiful old graveyards, which a lot of them are closed to the public now. I was very lucky to see them at the time. And he said, you've got no concept of graveyard etiquette. You're wide open. You're like a beacon. What are you doing? And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was just absorbing everything, right? So he said, you're like a little, flashlight for everyone to come and find you. So he taught me a few techniques around, graveyard etiquette, giving offerings to spirits, walking in backwards, walking out backwards, and a few other things that I have like taken with me throughout the rest of my life. Like I will never walk forwards into a grave. His reasoning was, you never came and you never left. If you walk in backwards, walk out backwards, giving an offering as you enter, and an offering to any spirit's grave that you go to visit. So that was really good advice. He did some other stuff to help me out as well. Fantastic. And then I'd seen the stuff that helped. So the fear was like, oh, I have a way to control it. It's this witchy stuff. What can I do around that? And that sort of introduced me to things like cleansing. That was kind of a good intro. Shielding, protection stuff. I was already very versed in, herbal wisdom. So, certain teas and things that I would use. And I was like, well, maybe I could use this for a spiritual advantage as well. And maybe I could read the tea leaves. That was my very first try at divination. So I'd had all these little tiny snippets that by themselves sort of felt small enough, but altogether they were really, again, that exposure therapy for me as a recovering Christian to move past that fear and experience a little bit of it and see that it worked, or it wasn't what I feared would happen, right? Wasn't what I was told would happen. And buying tarot cards was another huge leap that took me literally years of it in the back of my head, like someone speaking into my brain. Buy a deck of cards. I was like, I can't. A demon will jump out at me. A portal to hell will open up if I touch a tarot deck, right? None of that happened. So now I have like 30 tarot decks. So it's just, A, exposure therapy, B, sort of pushing back on those beliefs that you were told when you were young can really help get people through onto the other side.
Yeah. I feel like I was holding my breath the whole time. I was like, what happened next? I don't know what I would have done. I think I would have I guess if you're in it, you're in it. Like there's a point where it's just, what are you going to do? But I live in North Texas, and in the summers we drive to Colorado, so we go through New Mexico, and I booked an Airbnb, but it was the same thing. It was just like a trailer on a field. Kind of, that's the first thing I thought when you described that. And I remember I walked in, and I think I was probably maybe 8 hours drive still from my house. And I walked into that place and it felt so wrong. I got in my car and I was like, I'm just going to drive home. I'm going to eat the money. I can't do it. I can't stay here. And I don't know if that was just me being scared or if there was actually something there, but I've learned to, whatever it is, I just trust it now, even though, and I think that's part of the thing with something like you experienced where you had a smell, you didn't know, and then somebody confirmed that. I think that's very validating to that experience. Yes. But I think a lot of times it sort of doesn't make sense, right? And we're kind of just like, well, I don't know. Like mine is clairsentience and it's feeling. And so I feel so much that it's like, but what is what? So I've just sort of learned to kind of listen and, maybe I'm just in a mood, maybe it's something deeper. I don't know. I'm just going to give it the space and figure it out. But that's still a journey in itself. But yeah, it's so fascinating. And New Orleans, my ex was from New Orleans, and that's what they say, like people there are touched. There's just I love the city of New Orleans, but I don't know that I could ever live there because I feel like I would really have to have those practices to not be so open. Like we would just walk down the streets and I could just feel it. You could feel the energy there. And I don't think we went through no, actually we did go through one cemetery. We went through, I did not walk in backwards. I did not live backwards, but I don't know. I think we're okay.
It's such it's one of my favorite cities in the world.
It's beautiful.
I would love to live there, but just like short term.
Yeah.
Short term. It feels, there's an air of danger to it. And I don't know if that's just the spiritual aspect or other aspects of that area. But I mean, even historically, it's always been, there were all sorts of people thrown in there because there's this major almost like port area, right, on the Mississippi. So you've always had all sorts of people there, which is a wonderful thing, and it's why it's so rich in culture. It's unlike anywhere else I've been in the States.
Yeah.
but it has a pretty bloody history.
Yeah.
And that is like soaked into the soil in a way. So
Mhm.
it's a wonderful place, absolutely amazing. Oh, the architecture. I love it. I love it. And I
It's
think long term,
fascinating. Yeah.
I'd
It's like
feel
you
on
have,
edge a little bit.
yeah, I would imagine that. I mean, like that was the one city. I haven't done too much traveling in America. I've done more traveling overseas than I have here, but like of the places I visited here, that to me feels more like Europe. Like you can
Yeah.
feel the history, whereas a lot of
Yeah.
places that's built over, it's stripped of the history, and you're just kind of like DC was closer because I think that, you know, with the Civil War and all that kind of stuff there, and you could go to these places that still held some of those like homes and things like that. But most places no, but I definitely feel that with New Orleans. It's like, yeah, that history is just like inside like the bricks of that city. It's really, really interesting. I mean, it's yeah, it is like architecture wise too. I completely agree. It's
Love it.
fascinating because you have like French and then Spanish and then this, you know, it's just like all matched in, but it just like works. But
It works. It's so good. Like Queen Anne is like underpinning a lot of them. Like it's just so
mm,
beautiful. It's
yeah,
intricate. I think that's the
yeah.
intricate details is what I love. It's colorful. It's
Hmm.
really,
It has
really
a
nice.
soul. It has
So
its own soul.
100%.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So one thing I want to talk about is you were mentioning about clairsentience.
Hmm.
So this is my specialty area, right? Psychic senses and psychic divination. So I have a full-blown course on this called The Art of Psychic Divination. And one of the key things, so there's a couple of key things. Number one, whenever we're developing our psychic gifts, we need to make sure that we're having fun.
Hmm.
An element of fun and playfulness keeps you so much more open to receiving than as soon as you like, okay, I'm going to focus really hard and I'm going to try and get this. That energy doesn't really work with psychic stuff. It has to be fun and open. If you try too hard, you block yourself. The other thing is doubt. As soon as doubt or fear come up, that will block you as well. So it's just being aware of those things and often doing shadow work around them as well. Why are you trying so hard? Why do you need to get it right? Why does it
Hmm.
matter? Right? Shadow work around that will be really helpful. Why are you scared? What do you think's what's the worst case scenario that could happen? All right, now flip it. What's the best case scenario that could happen? Let's work on that. So those sorts of prompts are like foundational base things before anyone does anything psychically. The next thing I do in this course, and it's engineered this way, and you mentioned it before, was validation. Validation is so incredibly helpful, and it's actually necessary to really develop your psychic gifts. Now, with the course, one of the big things I do is I'll have like, you know, a video or a photo, and I say, okay, here is 3 crystals. I want you to just tune into them really just quickly. Which one do you think I'm going to pick? And then, you know, give it a couple of seconds, and then I pick whichever one, right? But it's not about whether people get it right or wrong. If they get it right, great. Why did you get it right? How did you get that information? Was it a feeling? Were your eyes drawn to it? Did you just like the color? Did you hear it? Like, what was it that made you pick that one? That is the crucial information. I don't care if you get it right or wrong. We want to know what led you to that answer and can that be repeated? So we do this test in multiple different ways throughout different stages of the course. Now, if people get it wrong, that's actually better because then that tells us more information. So if someone gets it wrong, usually there's 2 responses to that. Damn it, I knew it was that one, right? Which means they had the answer and they ignored it and they chose something else. So that's usually intuition came in first and then they talked themselves out of it and rationalized into something else and then made just a guess. So that is useful information. Then we know the next time we do a little test, what is that very first one? And oftentimes when we do like live ones, like on a live call, I'll, you know, say, write in the comment when I do the thing, write in, first I heard this, but then I thought that. Because for some people, it is the second one. It's not the first one they guess. First one's they guess, the second one's intuition. So it just depends the speed of it coming through for you personally. And we repeat this over and over so you can see the patterns. And the other time is if people are like, oh, I had no idea it wasn't good. Like I got it so wrong. I didn't have any clue it was going to be that one. And again, it's usually, were you waiting to hear something? How quickly did you wait until you guessed? Like, what was it? How did you tune in? Every now and then people pick the wrong one because that's a crystal they probably need to work with at the time. So it's right for them, but that wasn't the point of the question. So there's a few little things engineered like that that help people start to tune in. And when we do these over and over, we start to notice people going, oh, I feel this and I feel that. And guess what? Clairsentience is your most, strongest sense that you're using because you're feeling everything. Or, oh, I saw this, or it made me think of that, or whatever it is going to relate to a different psychic sense. We have access to all of them. We usually preference one or two rather strongly, but they can all work together, and it depends on the type of information we're trying to get through. I've done I've been doing a mediumship reading before, and I felt like all this saliva in my mouth, quite literally saliva filling my mouth. And I was like, why? There's obviously a focus here on my mouth, right? Something here feels, and I was doing all the mouth things. I was like, what is it? And I'm like, it's kind of like smoking, but I would smell smoke. So there's a reason it's coming through a different sense. Chewing tobacco. And the person was like, yeah, my grandpa used to chew tobacco all the time. And I was like, oh, I've never chewed tobacco, so I wouldn't know the taste or the feeling or anything, but it came through really physically in the mouth. So that's kind of almost a blend of this clairsentience, because it's a feeling, but also clairgustance, which is that sort of taste. Like there was the element of it there, almost like the ghost of the taste alongside the physical feeling of the saliva in my mouth. So there's a reason certain ones are used at certain times for certain bits of information to come through. And we just sort of have to trust that and figure it out from there. But the first thing is opening up to it coming in, knowing how it comes in, how it can come in, knowing which to trust. And then you can go into, well, how do we interpret that? What do we do with that? That's the next half.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were speaking, I know when I was really first exploring it, I would like sit and meditate. I made it very serious. I sat in meditation. I like cleared my chakras. I would sit and I would focus, and I would just like, oh, I want to like experience it. I don't know, like, as you were asking those questions, I had was like quickly going through my head of like, why did I feel the need to like grasp it, And I guess like, yeah, it's interesting. I guess everybody has like a different reasoning for it. So you gave me something to just like journal on later of like why,
Yeah.
but and then my second question was going to be if we all have all of it, and you answered that, because that's really interesting. I mean, I know we have primarily like a couple, right, that we can like sort of late into easier than others. Would you mind maybe just like really short, like just overviewing each one so people are aware of what different kinds there are?
Yeah, I will. I'm just going to segue with a little tiny story that I think will be helpful as well, because one thing that I'm so passionate about, and I actually get a lot of pushback on this, we are all psychic. Every single person is psychic. We will have, some people are naturally gifted at one specific part of being psychic, like they might be more gifted at this part and not that part, but we all have the ability. And everyone's like, no, that's not the case. Whenever I say this, people are like, I absolutely reject that. No. But let me back it up. I think, some people close themselves off quite purposefully, whether that's subconsciously or consciously. B, if you're completely skeptical, even if you do get something psychic, you're just going to think it's your own idea. Like if it's not an option to you, you will never give credit to that, unless it hits you in the face like it did with me with the smell of hay, right? And I was already kind of looking and searching for something spiritual. So the people who were like really scientific, really, Spock, if Spock had a psychic vision, he would not think it was a psychic vision. It would be anything but that. That would be the absolute last resort, right? So you have people like that. I do believe they're still psychic. They just either don't recognize it for what it is, don't give credit to what it is and think it's something else, or X, Y, and Z. Now, the other thing is a lot of us have the wrong words for it. And this is why in my course, it's one of the biggest part of it is understanding how these things can come through. I cannot tell you how many of my students have been like, oh my God, I thought everyone could do that. And it's so normal for them. And I'm here going, no, that's your gift, right? So one of the things was when I was probably about 8, I remember being on the beach with my family and another family. I was with one of my good friends, and we were building a sandcastle. And as we're building it, I got this crystal clear vision, like in front of my vision, right? So I could see it happening, even though my eyes were open. It was almost like a little movie screen in front of me. And I got this image of our younger brothers, running and jumping onto our castle. And I just sort of went, oh, the boys are gonna, and just before I said jump on it, they ran over and jumped on it. So I had like a split second of knowing it before it happened, that split second of precognition. And so I went, I was like, Mom. She's like, I know, I'll go tell them off. I was like, no. I saw it happen. She's like, I know, he was sitting right there. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I saw it before it happened. I saw what they were going to do. And she goes, yeah, that's just deja vu, honey. Everyone gets that. Now I know that was not deja vu, but that's what she told me. She gave me a word for it. Everyone gets that. That's deja vu. And I went, oh, that's deja vu. Oh, okay. So then every time someone else said, oh, I just had deja vu, I'm like, yeah, I get that too. It's weird, right? Thinking it was the same thing. And then every time I got a precognitive vision, even a split second one, I go, oh, I just had deja vu. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I get that. But I was having precognitive, like what I was having was different to deja vu. Like there should have been like a, oh my God, that's really cool. How did you get that? Right? That's a clairvoyant vision of the future. But it just became a normalized thing. Everyone does that. That's nothing special. So it took a long time to unlearn that one tiny sentence. That's just deja vu. Everyone does that. And I promise you, every one of you, everyone listening will have something like that you think everyone can do, that you just think is normal. So there's that element to it as well that we have to unlearn. With the psychic senses, there are there's a few. So we start with the main ones, which is clairvoyance. That means clear seeing. That can be literally in front of your eyes. Like I see a vision like a little movie screen and I'm physically looking at it with my eyes. But it can also be a dream. A dream is clairvoyance. It's a vision. It's a visual image that we see, right? It could be, I looked at this card, I'm pulling tarot cards, I looked at this card, my eyes are really drawn to this color or this symbol or this, that your eyes are giving you what you need, right? It's giving you the focal point. It can also be a mind's eye image. This also works if people have something called aphantasia, which I have. And a lot of people don't think they have it, but they do have it. And this is if you say to someone, and there's a little graphic, if you Google aphantasia, you'll see this little graphic. Usually it's like stars or an apple or something like that. And if I say, imagine a red star, so close your eyes, imagine what a red star looks like. And then it gives you little visual options. Did it look like this, a literal red star? Did it look like maybe a black and white star? You got the shape, but you can't really see the red color. Or maybe you just saw the red blurry, but you didn't really get the shape. Or is it, just sort of a red something, but there's no shape to it at all? It's just a bit of a blur. Or do you just see black? In my mind's eye, I just see black, but I can still get clairvoyant images. Similar, the way I describe it is if you're reading a novel or something and your eyes are open and you're reading it and you're like, there was a pink hill with a purple sky and you know what that looks like, even though you're not physically seeing it in your brain. Mm-hmm. Your imagination still works regardless of physically seeing the image in your mind. That's how I describe something that we call noir voyance. Noir means dark or black. Clair means clear. So the clairvoyance is when you literally see the vision like a movie. Noir voyance, I describe it almost like when you're watching a film, like old-fashioned films when they were, it would flick through the images. It's almost like you're seeing that negative in between when the screen is black, but you know what's there because you just sort of, there's like a flash of it. That's how it feels to me. When I'm doing mediumship and I'm tuning into someone, whether that's digitally or in person, I almost get this noir voyance image of the people standing behind them, right? I'm not physically seeing them with my eyes, but they're there, right? I can still sort of see the essence of them. So that is one way that clairvoyance or that aspect around the eyes can come through. There's claircognizance. Oh, yeah, go on.
I was like, I've never heard of that before, but I really resonate with that, especially when you're talking about like reading a book. There's so many times that I'm like, yeah, I can see it. I have my eyes open, I'm reading, or like you get like flashes of an image of something, even though you're just like walking through your normal day. But it's not like, I don't know, like a vision. That's interesting.
Yes. So it's just a different way because when people say, they're clairvoyant, they're psychic, they get visions, they get a concept of what that must mean, but they don't get the actual, like, no, it can be like this. And that's what my job is trying to do, to be like, whoa, let's actually tell you what it really is in reality. Let's get practical. So we break it down. Then we we go to claircognizance, and that is clear knowing. Now, this is the hardest one for people because it's the fastest and it doesn't really have a source. You're not seeing it, you're not hearing it, you're not smelling it, you're not feeling it. It just is there. The information is there. So that one can be a little bit tricky to develop because it's kind of one of those ones you have to just innately have. If people talk about things like channeling, often that, I say, is claircognizance. So it's just that it's just coming through quite quickly. People who do things like light language or speaking in tongues, which I say is quite similar, that kind of relates in with that for me when I'm looking at spiritual gifts and things like that. They have this little bit of a link. When people are painting or drawing or singing and they're in the flow of that information coming through, I say that's related to that claircognizance. Then we have clairsentience, which is a clear feeling, right? And that is sometimes a very physical sensation, like, oh, I feel really like my stomach is twisting in a knot. This person is lying to me. What they're telling me is not right. So that can be a symptom, a sign of clairsentience, right? But it can also be similar to that, like noir voyance, almost like the ghost of a feeling. Like I might be like, oh, like I feel like my knee feels, it doesn't literally feel painful, but it's like the twinge of something that could have been a pain once, like the ghost of a pain. Something about knees, is your knee hurting? Like, and then, going from there, like that's part of that clairsentience, that feeling. It can be walking into a room and going, oh, vibes are off in here, right? Like what you did with the trailer.
Yeah.
That's that you pick up physically in your body the energy around you. So that's some aspects of clairsentience. We have clairaudience, that's hearing. So that can be the song on the radio. You think, I wonder how so-and-so is doing. And then a song that you guys have as your song comes on the radio. Or perhaps you're, again, thinking of a loved one who's passed away and a song comes on that has, the answer to the question you were just thinking about in the lyrics. Or the presenter says something like, oh, you were thinking of me, like, and responds to what you were just thinking. You're like, what? Those are some signs of this clairaudience, is clear hearing, right? Anything that comes in audio wise. But there's also, again, that almost like internal ones. So this one can be tricky. And this is where meditation really does help. Because when we meditate, the goal is not to clear your mind. The goal is to notice what your brain does normally, so that when you do get an intuitive thought that's dropped in, you can recognize it and go, that's not what my brain normally does. That's come from somewhere else. And then you can start to recognize when these intuitive thoughts come in, rather than, I didn't actually think that up. That's not how I don't usually think I need to call Sarah today. So maybe I should call Sarah because that's an intuitive thought, right? Like that's where meditation can be really, really helpful. So that's the clairaudience. Then there's the clairalience, as we've already talked about, the smell. There is clairgustance, which is taste. So clairgustance, I find it's a secondary sense. It's not going to be able to give you a lot of information. But I have had one student who it was their main psychic sense. She would tune into a card. I'd be holding up a card backwards and say, what's on the other side of this? And she'd go, this side of my tongue is tingling. That's usually where like sour. So I'm going to say like sour, like citrus sort of thing. But I'm also getting this sweetness, like tart, almost like an apple. I feel like it's very fruity. And then we turn it around, there's like apples and lemons on it. And you're like, what? Right? So she'd get this really interesting information through her sense of taste and like tongue mapping, and starting to have this almost like symbol library for when it does this, it means this, so I can trust that for next time. So that's really cool. Then there is clairtangency. That's kind of related to clairsentience because it's about clear touch. But with this one, it might be, let's say you are trying to pick a tarot card and you wave your hands over it and that it feels warm somewhere. I'd say that's more clairtangency than it is clairsentience, right? And that's when you pick that card. Or perhaps you're, an energy worker or someone who works with like massage, Reiki, anything like that. Perhaps you've got your hands over someone and it feels spiky or it feels this, and that's going to tell you something, right? So those sorts of sensations coming through the hands and through touch. Psychometry is related to this one as well. That's where we put something in the hand and we read the energy of the item. So that's interpreting through the hand. So that in a way relates in with clairtangency, even though it might, tuning into that might bring on a vision or a sound or a thought or something else as well. So they all work together. Some are stronger than others, but yes, I think that's all of them.
Yeah.
I think I went through all of them.
Well, even as you were describing them, I could notice or have memories of times in my life where those like kind of, even the smaller ones, like I've never really, I don't know that smell or taste have really been a big one, but like you talk about like the palms, I've definitely done that. Like it's really interesting to be able to like see how many of these that we have. And I think that a lot of people will be like, oh, just trust your gut, or I just knew. And yeah, we like brush it off like it's nothing, right? But it's like, yeah, that kind of pause of like, that's amazing though. Like, wait, what did it feel like to you? Like it's really, really fascinating. I have like sort of two questions wrapped up in one, but like, have you noticed in somebody's like astrology chart, like where this would be, or if it relates to a specific like clair? And then the second half of that is, I don't know if you work with human design a lot or just are familiar with it, but like if like authority or cognition or anything ties into that as well, if you've noticed any like correlation.
So with astrology, yes, I do notice that people that are on the Cancer Capricorn axis, basically that polarity between the two, very strong clairsentience. Very strong class. They're the ones that know when you're lying to them. Don't lie to a Cancer, don't lie to a Capricorn. That's people with those major placements, right? So the big three generally, or if they have a stellium in one of those areas. So, or something like that, like a big area of energy there. So that is very, very tangible there. Virgo, anyone with Virgo placements, I swear, drawn to the tarot. It's a system. It has rules. It is logical. This means that. This plus this means that. Like so many Virgos are drawn to the tarot as a tool for their psychic gifts, right? And that's what divination is. It's a tool through accessing those. There's many different types of divination, but definitely cartomancy can be a really great one for people who are Virgo. There's Pisces is always going to be the one that people are like, oh, this one's, Pisces are going to be the psychic one. But they're probably the one that's going to be doing the tea leaf reading or the scrying. Scorpio is probably going to do a black mirror scrying, right? But Pisces might be scrying on like clouds, right? They're reading the clouds or the dreams. Definitely dreams, like dream divination, right? So there's a bunch of different divination types or psychic abilities that could be coming through different signs and depending on how it's made up. And sometimes that does form part of like when I'm doing an astrology reading for someone. If they're curious about psychic abilities, I'll be like, okay, well, we've got heavy, look at elements, earth, air, fire. That's going to tell you a lot as well. Heavy air elements, we might be getting more of that clairaudience, right? That coming through mentally or the claircognizance even. Right? Whereas the earth elements might be a little bit more tactile, a little bit more systems based. So there's really interesting ways we can work with it. When it comes to human design, so in terms of like things like being a manifestor or a manifesting generator or any of those, I haven't really noticed a correlation so much in terms of psychic abilities or anything. There's only 5 types. There's not a lot of nuance in that specifically. Perhaps in more like the yes, I can't remember what it's called. Is it authority? Maybe it's not a system I use a lot of, but the one that has like the emotional solar plexus.
Yeah.
That, for example, that's going to be people that need to use a slower form of divination, or something like a pendulum will work really well for them because they often don't trust the information that they get through, or it's a little bit slower to come through. So, or they can second guess themselves a lot. So having like a way to get into the body a little bit more, like a pendulum works with your body. Your intuition knows, your body knows before you know sometimes. So that can be related in there. Oh my goodness, I get 2 of them mixed up. There's sacral and there is another one. Splenic, which is the one that's
I'm pulling up your chart right now.
Well done. If I'm splenic, that's the one that's like splenic. Really really fast information.
And it's
So
very
again,
intuitive. It is
yes,
the like center for intuition. Yeah.
yes, gut
Mm-hmm.
instinct, just trusting that very first thing that comes out, right?
Yeah.
So that is, gut instinct, like you feel it, or you claircognizance can come through as well, and you just trust it straight away. The other one, which is the sacral,
Mm-hmm.
that's the one where I tell people to pay a close attention to what their mouth says. So, for example, my my son and my brother both have this. And if I say something like, "Hey, do you want to go to the park?" Ugh, that tells me that's no. And then they might go, "Oh, all right." I'm like, "No, no, you said no." Or,
Yeah.
like they'll give like like these little like grunts. It's so funny when you notice these little like glimmers into what they're actually thinking before their brain takes over.
Mm-hmm.
So again, pay attention to that. So that's coming through that throat. Again, that's almost like that. It's quite instant, it's quite quick, but then their brain takes over and then they choose something else. So I do think that can be related to that clairsentience meets claircognizance meets clairaudience, almost all working together as a lovely little hive function. So that's really interesting. I can't remember what the other ones are off the top of my head because it's not a system I work with a lot, but I
Yeah.
have noticed
There's
those correlations in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's like a layer to human design. It's a little bit deeper into it, but it's called cognition, which is sort of like as you're talking about these, it just reminded me of it. But it's smell, taste, touch, inner vision, outer vision, feeling. Yeah. So for me, mine is feeling, which makes sense that clairsentience.
Mm-hmm.
Yours is actually touch. So it's like that tactile, which even like tarot cards and crystals, right? Like things like that. So
I like having a divination method, which is a physical thing.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. And you were talking about smell before, so that's why I like kind of wanted to check. So maybe it's smell, but I've noticed like, yeah, people, there is an element of that to whatever, I guess, like gift that they would have, because that's what they call it. Like that specific part of your human design, it's like your superpowers. Like if you can't decide or you're just kind of feeling like whatever, it's something that you can sort of lean into, like smell. If you are looking for a house or you're buying a house, like really noticing, like you're going to smell something nobody else will. If it smells bad, you can't cover that up. Like it's always going to smell bad for you, and that's kind of like your way of knowing that it's not for you. But yeah, it's really fascinating.
You should actually, you would probably laugh if you ever watched me walk through a shop. My husband picks on me all the time because I'll walk through and touch everything. He's like, "Can you keep your hands to yourself?" And I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
But I'm very touched, like I'm very sensitive to like fabrics and how things feel, and it is a tactile experience in that regard. And but also to the point, like if something is sticky, hell no, like revulsion type of thing.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that would relate a little bit with that. And then using things like cards, they've got to have a good feel to them. So absolutely.
Yeah,
and
both
this one feels right.
Yeah, both my kids have touch cognition, and I've learned to not say like, when you're in the store, like, don't touch that. I'll be like, please don't break it. Just put it back. Don't break it. Or if we're going to go into like a crystal shop, we're just not going to go. Well, I'll go alone because they can't help it. They're always, it's like the minute you take your eyes off them, they're like,
that's how you have
like,
to experience it. I have to touch all the
exactly.
clothes as I walk past them.
Yeah. But my son, I noticed like, even like that little, if something doesn't feel right to him, he'll literally like, like he'll make that noise. Yeah. I'm like, okay. But he's a sacral too. It's funny.
Another funny one with the environments in human design. I found that really, really interesting. So my husband is mountains, right? And I'm caves. And I'm like, oh, cute. Like caves are in mountains. Like that's cute. We fit together, right? But he's mountains. And I know that means, getting a higher perspective. He literally works in planes. Like he's in the plane every day. Like he is high up in the clouds, right? So that's really interesting. He absolutely adores it. I can't think of anything worse. No, thank you. Plane is to get me to another country, but I'm not in that. I don't like that plane. Yeah. So that's been really interesting. I don't know if you probably can't see much. Where I am right now, this is essentially my cave. Right? It is, everyone that walks in goes, oh, like I've got this like study space that it is earthy. There is like wood everywhere. There is like plants. It feels like I've got a big light on when I do my calls like this, but there's dim lighting and it just feels very cave-like. I go into my little hovel and I work away in here and I absolutely adore it. It's where I feel safe to do things. But also when we look historically at people who have been the priest or the shaman or the psychic or the witch or the person that you go to for that, the oracle. They have been in a cave, or they go to a cave to take their hallucinogens, to have their visions from God and bring it back to the community. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no wonder I feel drawn to doing, having stuff like this and being in this like cozy, safe space in order to then give the world what, the talents that I have to
Yeah.
share with them. So I think that's really interesting in human design. But I also love all the lines. I can't remember what they're called. I think they're just called lines. I think they're really fun.
Oh, like the
To,
line quality.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too because you're a 1-3, right? So that first line, I mean, it is like that it is associated with caves, but it's also makes sense that you would need that safety and security, like whatever the environment would be, to like
Yeah.
because my daughter, she's a first line, she's a 1-3, but she's mountains, and we go to Colorado in the summer. She's like the only one that has no issue. Like everybody
Mm-hmm.
else is like winded a little bit, or like my parents get it real bad. They have to like take oxygen and stuff like that, and I'm like
Mm.
fine, but her, she's just like, what's the problem?
Yeah, I've
But
had
it's
altitude sickness before. I wonder,
yeah,
that's interesting. Wouldn't it be
that
cool to
makes
look at people that had that? Like, what is your environment?
yeah. Well, raw so environment actually turns on at your Saturn return, which is sort of like you'll always like be more inclined towards it, but it's that Saturn return that you're actually because that's sort of the time I think that when you've I mean, traditionally you're kind of making your name and your career, or you're finding what you're going to
Yes.
do, right? So that puts you in that environment to succeed in life, right?
Mm.
But like if you're a kid and you're sick or something like that, like you can be put to that environment and you'll still feel some benefit from being in it, but it really doesn't kind of turn on until that point. But Ra, the man who downloaded it, he said that he's Shore's environment and he's always lived on
Mm.
an island. And one point in his life, they moved to like the mountains in somewhere, I don't know, like New Mexico or something like that. And he said like he
Mm.
almost died. Like he got so sick because he had
Mm.
never been in that sort of environment. His body couldn't like take it. But it is really, really fascinating. And I know every time like I just like always pick out these little keywords. I'm like, I wonder, but
Yeah, I also think it's interesting with that 1-3, from what I know of it. The one is kind of like needing all of the knowledge or like the
mm-hmm.
information.
Yeah.
And then the 3 is also like I call it like the learning the hard way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You got to experience it first in order to then, teach about it or share about it. And that explains my life so perfectly. I've experienced all these things, and that is what allows me to then, or gives me the prompt to dive deep and learn everything I can possibly know about it and then bring it back to everyone. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting seeing how that comes out in my life, at least.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. Did you ever have like a point where because like that first line, it is very like fact finding and needs the foundation and things like that, but it does hold a lot of like insecurity. And so I always feel like especially with that third line, and where I think people get tripped up a lot with the third line is because we've been taught like failure is bad, and right, so it's like we're constantly failing, and then there's this part like depending like 3-5 I feel like has it because that fifth line is like it's like the savior archetype, right? So a lot of people who have that 3-5 have a lot of issues because they're just failing, but yet they want to be the savior because people come to them like, how do we help, right? So I find that dynamic a little with that 1-3 as well. But
Mm.
but I know that my daughter's 14 and she has the 1-3, and I just see so much insecurity, and so I try and like support her, empower her to like find her way, and like it's not a bad thing if you fail. You have to keep trying,
Yeah.
but
I think I don't know, I have a very stubborn streak, and my mum growing up would say things like, don't do that because this will happen. And I'd turn around and say, let me figure it out for myself. Like that
yeah.
was kind of if I'm gonna do it wrong, I will learn that way, mum. Like
Mm-hmm.
I already understood that about myself. I already knew that if I mess up, that's how I learn the best. And that's part of when I'm teaching any class, any course, a big part of it is I want you to get it wrong. That tells you so much more than if you get it right all the time. If you get it right all the time, you'll just coast through and you'll never actually learn it. You need to get it wrong. So I think that's a bit of a perspective shift on the constant failure. And it's what I try to teach my kids as well. Like the outcome is not what I want from you. I want to see that
Yeah.
that you're growing and that you're trying and all of those sorts of things. So
Mm-hmm.
failure is what I want to see. Failure that shows me that you actually have to try, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That could be
Yeah.
how it comes through.
Yeah.
Insecurity wise, I mean, I was in the church, right? It breeds insecurity. So I think I've always put that down into the religious trauma aspect of how that all manifests in a lot of, particularly people who were assigned female at birth, and how it breeds insecurity. It breeds not trusting yourself, not trusting your inner voice, not knowing who you are, because you become a carbon copy of everybody else because that's what you're told you have to be. So, the amount of girls that I knew in youth group that also had eating disorders was way higher than it ever should have been because of that. And you've got to be this good girl all the time. You've got to be perfect. So yes, there was that, whether that was nature versus nurture, there's that aspect to it too.
Yeah.
But I'm not insecure now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's, that's kind of the beautiful part of aging too. And I think especially when you don't have to like get into this work, but I think that this is empowering in a really beautiful way. And like, cause I was insecure for so much of my life. And then I've just, the older I get, the like less I care. So I'm like, you
Yes.
just have to, you can't live your life like worrying about what people think, and that's, I don't know, everyone's on their own path, but
every time I have worried about what people think, it gets ripped out from underneath me. So I will have a habit, and I have a Scorpio moon, so this does happen, a habit of being a little bit secretive about things I'm doing. Or like, for example, the fact that I am a professional witch and astrologer, I hid from most of my family and friends for most of the time that I was doing it, because my family, a lot of them were still very Christian, still in the church, didn't want to hurt my grandparents, all of that. They found out. They found my social media, and that rug got ripped out from under me before I was ready for it. And it caused this huge, like huge family drama. Like I'm talking mammoth scale level family drama. And in the end, what it did was it made me go, you know what? I don't even care what you guys think because I'm so much happier doing this. I could never go back. And so that was a huge learning moment for me of like, why was I even hiding it? Why bother? Right? I was trying to protect them, and then it ended up hurting me, and that was not worth it. So why bother with that anymore? So anytime I've tried to hide a part of myself, it gets revealed in a very dramatic way that then transforms me to a level of self-acceptance that I didn't have prior to that. So yes.
Yeah.
Good thing in the end, but
yeah.
go through it.
Forcing it out. Well, what do you like for anybody that's kind of like navigating this or exploring this? How can they, or what advice, I guess, would you have for them as they're just sort of like coming into it?
If they're just coming into it, I think a lot of people try and jump ahead too quickly and they ignore the foundations. For example, in my course, I've refused to teach anyone any form of psychic work or divination or energy work before they've done the basics. And the basics are grounding. Make sure you can ground as second nature. It's so easy. You understand it. You know why we do it. You know how to do it. You know alternative methods to do it. If I say ground yourself, you're like, oh, done, grounded, right? Like that's what it needs to be. It needs to be second nature. If you do not learn that skill, it is going to be rough riding for you as soon as you start turning on all of those psychic abilities. And that's where it can feel like you're either being flooded, you don't know what's real and what's not real. You can feel like you're up here in the ethereal dreamland all the time and you can't quite catch your feet under you. That's where you go out shopping and you're getting stuff from people all around you all the time, which is not only unethical, but it's going to drain you very, very quickly. So grounding, very, very important. Shielding, very, very important, right? So understanding that. Meditation, really useful skill. I have raging ADHD. That is not an excuse for not being able to meditate. You can train your brain to do it, but you just have been doing it the wrong way because everyone thinks you got to sit there and tell your mind to shut up. That is never going to happen. Instead, what you do is you find a form of active meditation, right? So instead of trying to sit quietly in a corner with your hands on your knees, you sit down and you do some adult coloring in. If you aim to do some adult coloring in, one sheet of it once a week is good. Twice a week is great. 3 times a week is probably the best. If you do that every week for a couple of weeks, you have already trained your brain to get into the right brainwave states for meditation without realizing it. You're doing something active, so your brain's kind of focused on this color and this line and get it in there. It will naturally be easier then for you to do a short 2-minute meditation where you're sitting still than it ever was before. You can slip into it, right? You can be coloring and then just stop for a minute and then color again. You could put timers on, you could gamify it. That's a really great way to get through it. And it doesn't have to be adult coloring it. It can be weeding. Weeding is a really great way to both ground and active meditate at the same time. Running forms a part of active meditation. Pottery is fantastic. Pottery is really good on a pottery wheel, right? It's again super grounding, super tactile. So there's all these like methods you can do to work yourself up and to build that muscle, to train that meditation muscle. Once you are doing that, you are so much better primed for receiving the information, accessing that information when you want to develop your skills, right? Then you go into the next levels up. So you got to really focus on those foundations. Not as exciting, I understand, but you'll have a far easier time of it when you get down the road.
Yeah. So do you wake up and like ground and shield just like consistently every single day? Is it just like kind of turns on for you at this point or?
No, I don't consciously go, oh, I'm awake, I better ground. But it's especially because the mornings are not my nights are my strong suit.
Yeah.
Mornings are not. But I mean, most of the time I'm woken up by a kid being like, go, like, mum, the TV fellow, like something crazy, right? And you're like, like straight into life.
Yeah.
So usually what I do if I notice that I'm ungrounded in any way, depending on the scenario, right? If I'm just going about my day, then I'll be like, okay, I'm just going outside for a minute. I'm getting sunshine on my skin. I'm feeling the air. It's more of a like sensory grounding aspect. If I'm, really, really ungrounded, then I will do an actual like grounding visualization, the roots coming down, going into the earth, etc. If I'm doing any form of energy work, I'm grounding before I do that. For example, my daughter was having a real hard time yesterday, really, really hard time, meltdown era, hard time. And I asked her to lie down. We're going to do some crystal healing if she wanted to. Yeah, she's a Pisces. She loves that stuff. Almost immediately, she was like, energy shift, just giving her something else to do. Lies down. I place crystals on her and around her, and then was doing some energy clearing for her. Her energy shifted, but before I did any of that, before I picked the crystals, I did a very quick visualization to ground myself. And I knew that the more grounded I was, the more grounded she was. She would be feeding off my energy. So that's kind of like I'll do it situationally, as well as if I'm doing readings for people. If I have to do a quick one, if I'm doing like 20 readings in a row, which I do on my group calls, I will sit down, put my feet on the ground. I imagine little hooks just into the carpet, and boom, my energy is suddenly at my feet, which shoots the energy down. If I'm doing lots of readings, I can feel the energy rising, like my face gets hot. It's like it's coming up out of me. That's when I'm like, nope, little hooks under my feet. They're hooked into the carpet, and it just like shoots it down. It shoots my awareness down to my feet. People who are Pisces get ungrounded a lot of Pisces energy. So giving yourself a foot massage or something like that, Pisces rules the feet, but it also is super, super grounding. Clearing energy as well is big. Cleansing, those sorts of things form part of those foundational aspects. Understanding how to do that, right? How to do it the right way. That can be very helpful because sometimes we encounter people, things that we don't want to stick around on us. So we need to know how to get rid of it before we open up that door.
Yeah.
In a non-scary way. That door is not scary. It's just if you don't know it and if you don't know what to do about it, then it feels scary.
Yeah.
If you've got the tools, you're like, oh, this is so easy, right?
Yeah.
So building those skills is really, really important.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, thank you so much. This has been fascinating. I mean, like your stories, I'm just like, I was so glued to it. It's so interesting. How can people find you and how can they work with you? How can they take your course?
Yeah. So at suburbanwitchery.com, super easy. And I am Suburban Witchery on pretty much all of the social media platforms as well. I have a YouTube channel, tons and tons of content there that people can access if you want to, explore your tarot skills. There's a playlist of all my tarot videos of like, tarot spreads for beginners, frequently asked questions about tarot, all of that. Like there's tons of free, helpful stuff. And I even have a class on my website that's free and it's called Tarot for Protection. So if you want to learn how to protect yourself better and those protective skills, those witchy skills, and use the tarot to do it, that is an excellent class to take. My course, The Art of Psychic Divination, that one is also accessed on my website. There's a little section that says courses, so people can just quickly click on that and it'll take you through there. And that one, it's all set up so there's like an app. It's through Kajabi, so you get the Kajabi app,
Mm-hmm.
and it only releases the modules on a drip basis. So you cannot speed through it. I don't want anyone speeding through it. I am forcibly slowing you down so you have time to absorb the information. And then it also works for people with ADHD because you kind of forget about it. And then it's like, boop, new video. You're like, oh, there's something new. And it, you can jump into it again. And if anyone takes the course, for every module that you finish, I plant a tree on your behalf. So it's like, and you get a little badge. So it's like working with those dopamine levels as well. So I've tried to cover all bases with it, and it'll take you through all the psychic senses, similar today, but way deeper. Also, we do all sorts of divination. So astrology, palmistry, scrying, tea leaf reading, all the things are super fun.
I love it. Yeah. And even just like going through your Instagram and your YouTube page, like you make it fun, right? You like make it like
Fun and accessible.
you bring that energy into it, which is nice because a lot of it can be very serious. And like we talked about before, it's like, I must do this. Yeah.
I always get surprised. There's a lot of witches out there, especially the ones that come across as very aesthetic. And I watch that, I'm like, it's so serious. And like, it takes all the fun out of it if you have to set up everything for that little clip. Like, I don't know, just my little videos are sometimes, just my cat is sitting on my desk, which is so real life, whilst I'm editing a podcast episode. And I pretend that, if you have any complaints, you can come and see my cat about it. Like, it's just silly and real life stuff because I don't have time to make it all aesthetic.
Yeah.
But that's just the kind of person I am. Like, silly, it's accessible, it's fun. I don't want people to feel scared the way I used to feel scared because it's really not scary. Yeah. It's amazing, the stuff that we can access and find out about.
Yeah. Well, definitely everyone listening, go check it out because I know that is a huge, even in my journey, right? That fear has been something I've really had to overcome. And I think it's a part of it, but it also doesn't have to be so big. But yeah, thank you so much. This has been such a good conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.